there is no, that row doesn't exist. So, just put your last name on there, that's fine. Or just put your whole name. All right, so we should be live. Let's double check. Yep, says we're live, so, okay, good. A couple things I want to talk about sort of collectively, and then we're going to kind of do some worky stuff today. So first off, the seating chart's going around, but let me go in and just pick one of these. I'll pick on Ethan again. Actually, no, Mr. Ramsey, we'll pick on you. How about that?
Hey, I forgot my health bar, right?
Well, I guess you're gonna fail
no,
then.
I didn't put it under the tree.
Right. So let's go to the code. Okay. So, man, this is a kind of janky organization there.
Oh, well, it was organized earlier.
Yeah. Well, that's fine.
You know what? You can't put what you call it, the group. What do they call it? You can't put certain things in the functions, so it just looks all sloppy.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the downsides to visual code, right? Is that it's hard to visually keep it organized, and if anything, probably because the natural code direction is vertical, it would probably be wise to sort of organize each block horizontally so that then they run vertically and it's not ugly. But you know, we'll have sort of the same problem when we get into Unreal Engine with stuff that it's a little better because you have multiple places that you can have blocks of code, and so that sort of keeps some stuff organized. But you know, there's sort of a limit to the visual code, right? No matter what, you're going to have this problem. Okay, so how did this go? Did it kind of make sense? The tutorial hopefully made it a lot easier than just if I said make a space game and you'd be like, what? Okay. All right, so a couple things I wanted to talk about to kind of get going is, yes, this is correct. There should just be one chair. Okay. Is some of the stuff that you guys use, so let me take, for example, this block here, which is how you handled what happens when you touch the power-up that gets you more energy, right? Which was the on sprite of kind player overlaps other sprite of kind gas, or whatever you called it. This thing here, sprite, it's kind of like a variable, but it stands for another object, right? So with when you say destroy other sprite, okay, what that's doing is, well, what was the object of type gas that you touched? Which one was it? Okay. Oh, do we have everybody on the seating chart? Okay, so there isn't an object called other sprite. So what that is really doing is saying, okay, I just touched something, the player, right? Something of kind player touched something else of kind gas. Okay, what two things touched? Which object of kind player? Well, in this case, there's only one of those, right? There's only one player object. But other sprite of kind gas, well, which thing? Okay, so you could, so like here where you say destroy my fuel, that's actually redundant because other sprite is the gas can, right? So did we don't actually need that thing. But you could do, for example, like let's say that when you hit the gas can, it like destroys an enemy or something else. I don't know, right? But yeah, okay. So there's that. So it's sort of like a variable, but it's a variable that stands for another object. Okay. Does that kind of makes? I know it's a little weird. It's hard to explain that, but okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, get rid of that. Oh, and then to use like other sprite, you guys probably figured this out. You just click and drag that out, and then plop it in wherever you want to plop it in. Okay. Okay. Good. The status bar thing. Did that kind of make sense? And that was kind of nice actually because the status bar is not something that's built into MakeCode from the get-go. You had to load in an extension to do that. And you can have multiple status bars, by the way, right? You could conceivably have each enemy have its own status bar, like if you added a boss or something, you could do something along those lines. Okay, so there's that. The other thing I wanted to kind of talk about is an issue of, well, local variables. So let me go over to here. Stuff that we could add to Space Explorer. So let's just make kind of a list, like now that you've done it, and you've gone through the whole tutorial, right? What other stuff could we add to this? Like how could we make this game better? Yes.
Maybe instead of enemies, can add to the random debris coming from the side.
Okay, so like asteroids and stuff like that. Okay. What else? Score.
Probably at boss.
Boss. Yeah, definitely. What else? Yeah?
Levels.
Different levels.
Maybe some noise effects.
No sound. Okay. What else?
Maybe like some different power-ups or make you shoot faster or something like that.
Okay. Ryan?
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. So like some of these games, right, you can get different weapons that shoot different patterns. So like you start off with the pea shooter and then you can get a double one or one that shoots at like angles or something weird, right? Okay, what else? Yeah?
Like extra lives.
Right, because you start off with 3, I think it is. That's sort of the default, and we'll actually talk about that in a minute too. That's a good. Thank you for reminding me. Where like maybe there's an item that if you touch it, you get an extra life. You know, like what is it? Isn't that the green mushroom in Mario when you? Yeah. Okay. Oh man, shows you how I'm getting old. It's been a while since I've played classic Mario. Or the one up in. Has anybody played Doom Eternal? No. Okay, never mind. Yeah. All right, extra lives. What else? Yeah.
Probably get like aggressively faster.
Okay.
Maybe try to add an ending.
Like some sort of win mechanic,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, because right now there's no, like, you lose if you lose, but there's no way to win. I guess winning is just not losing. Yeah. What else? You got the guys at 8 were way more lively than you guys. This is what's up with that?
Can you maybe switch up the scenery of the map if you get to a certain point?
Yep. All right, so there's some stuff. Here's what the other class came up with. Yeah. Ammo, right? So if you've got fuel, they're like, well, maybe we can make it so that you have to have ammunition before you can shoot. And if you run out, you can't shoot. You have to get an ammo up item that's kind of like the fuel up item. Start screen or some sort of menu at the beginning rather than you just jump into the game. Some of them were making comments about the art. There is sort of a limitation within this particular, right, MakeCode, right? It's designed to be sort of classic pixel art, right, from back in the day. So, like, you're not going to get 4K ray traced graphics with this, obviously. So, what else? Sounds, score or high score, a boss, some sort of way to win, different weapons, enemy health, right? So right now, what happens if you either touch or shoot an enemy? Yeah, it just dies, right? So it's one hit for every enemy. But maybe, and this could go with the other levels, maybe you could get to the point where there are different kinds of enemies, some of which have more health than others, and then you would have to keep track of, in some sort of way, and this we'll talk about in a minute, the health of each enemy, which is kind of complicated, actually. All right, did that maybe give you guys any other ideas, other things we could add?
Looks like we're the same ones, right?
Yeah, roughly. Okay. Right. So, I mean, we could keep this list going forever, right? But, right, those are the kinds of different things that you might add to the game. All right. So, let's talk briefly about a few things. So, a couple of, let's see, what did I want to talk about? The health, right? Okay. So, let me. So this is, all right, right there. So you saw how, when does the health appear? Only the first time you get hit, okay, and it drops down to 2. So the reason that that's happening is, so where is it right here? When you overlap an enemy, right, change life by 1. Okay. Did we ever say, so where's the on start, call character, okay. Did we ever say what to do, or what the initial value of the player life is? Okay, but it defaulted to something, 3 in our case. If we go in and we say to our variables, or maybe it's under, where is it? Game, scene, I forget where it is. Here it is. Life, okay? The default value of life is 3, but if I say set life to 3, then when I run this, the life is already being displayed. Okay, so that's how you would fix that little issue if you wanted to, is just set its initial value to something, okay? And where was that under info? One thing that's, I think, a little bit annoying is there's no way to hide that display. So like in Scratch, for example, you could show or hide things. So like maybe if you're in a cutscene, you don't want the health meter to be showing, right? But then when you get back into the game, you do. Well, there's no way using the built-in life meter to do that. We'd have to roll our own, okay? Okay, so that was one just kind of minor thing I wanted to point out for everybody. The other thing is that, did we ever program in when life hits 0 what to do? It's built in, right? So that it automatically gives you the game over splash screen. If we wanted to roll our own, we'd have to do something like when life equals 0, then do blah, 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 okay? All right, good. Questions about that for right now? No? Gucci? Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about would be, how would we do enemy health, okay? Where one enemy might have a different amount of health than another, and if you have 2 copies of the same enemy, one copy might have a different amount of health than another, right? So like maybe when you shoot one of them, its health should drop, but not all of the enemy's health should drop. Okay, so what this gets to is the idea of variables. So you guys made some variables. Okay, sprites, your fuel things, right, and you can create whatever variables you want. Okay, but the variables that you create are global in the sense that the entire program can access them. And if you make, like, let's say I made a variable called foo, okay, I can't have each enemy have its own value of foo if I create the variable this way. Okay, there is only one variable called foo. That's not going to work then if I wanted to have health for each enemy where they could be different. So what I need to do is create a variable that sort of is tied to a particular object, and one object can have one value of it even though they're all called the same thing. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah? All right, so let me actually go into here, because this sort of demonstrates it. My enemy X. So there is a variable called X, right? And what does it represent? What is X? Yeah.
Is it just like any coordinate?
Yeah, it's the X coordinate on the screen. And just to keep you guys on your toes, where is 0, 0? Where would the logical place to put it? In the middle. Where is it? Top left. Oh, and also, which way does the y-axis run? Well, yes, but that's not what I meant. Positive y runs down, not up. Okay. So the coordinate system that we use in math class, where you have your x, y, you draw it, and going to the right is increasing x and going up is increasing y. That's not the coordinate system we use in computer graphics. Okay, so back in the day, this is a long time ago, right? They decided, okay, well, we'll put 0, 0 at the top left. That kind of makes sense, right? Because then if you type, you move to the right, that'll be increasing x. And if you hit enter and you go down to a new line, we'll make that increasing y. Everything was 2D back in the day. It was all text for that matter, right? That seems pretty logical, yeah? Except there's a problem with it though, right? It doesn't match what you learn in math class, okay? So, for example, when I was in grad school, I wanted I had this big complicated mathematical thing and I wanted to program an animation to kind of visualize what was going on. So if I set up all the math and I worked out how everything worked in Math World, then I had to translate all my formulas into computer graphics coordinates, and it drove me insane. Like, I wanted to punch people. But yeah, sorry, get used to it. Then when we got 3D stuff, guess which way Z goes? Out of the screen towards you, which is, yeah. But what it means is that the coordinate system is actually a left-handed system, not a right-handed system. And, well, you know those left-handed people. Who's left-handed in this room? Scrubs. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it just, it means that the math formulas don't translate anywhere. Okay, so sorry, I got onto a bit of that was more of an arc-hyperbolic cotangent than just a regular old tangent. No, I don't get, nobody's gonna laugh at my math jokes? You guys are making me sad. All right, so anyway, what is x, right? It's the coordinate of the object, or one of the two coordinates along the object. And in this case, when an enemy appears, the tutorial had you guys make the enemy's projectiles. which you didn't have to, right? Basically, it did that just because it made the physics a lot easier to get the things to move around. But each enemy that spawns, so let me run the game here. All right, so notice that each of those enemies has its own x coordinate. They're not all at the same place, right? And why is that? Because when you create an enemy, what are you doing to it? You're setting its x position to be some random number, right? That makes sense, so that they're not all at the same place. But my enemy x would be, so when you create an enemy, which in this case happens every half a second, right? This enemy's x and that enemy's x are two different things, right? Okay, so x is a local variable that's tied just to that object. And two different objects can have two different x coordinates. Makes sense. Okay, what other local variables are there? That's all of them that are built in. Okay, and what do we got in the list? X, y, velocity in the x and y direction, that makes sense. Acceleration in the x and y direction, also makes sense. Friction in the two directions, we never set that, so it's basically 0 right now. Lifespan and left and right. I'm not entirely sure what that is, the left and right is, but lifespan basically is like, well, like let's say in Mario Kart or something, there's some of the items that if they appear and you don't get them within 5 seconds, they disappear, like a coin or something like that, right? That would be how you would do that, is you'd use the lifespan. You'd set it to 5, and then after 5 seconds of its existence, it would disappear. But there's no way that I can create new local variables there. That's annoying. It means I can't have different health for each enemy. Or can I? All right, so how did you guys get the status bar? What did you have to do to get the status bar to work? Well, yes, but where did you get, like, the status bar stuff wasn't there to begin with when you opened up a new project. What did you have to do first? You had to load in an extension. Right? You didn't? Oh. Oh, I guess it is just there. Okay, well, sorry, let me back up. If I go to home and I just make a new project, do you see status bar in the list? No. Okay, so where the heck is the status bar stuff? It's under extensions, okay? And it's here, right? So the tutorial must have just built that in, loaded it in for you from the get-go, so you didn't have to do that. But there are a lot of extensions that are built, that you can add to it. The status bar was one of them that you guys used, okay? But there's another one, and this one right here, arcade sprite data. Okay, it doesn't look like it added anything, but it did. If I go over to sprites, I see all the stuff that I normally do, okay? But then if I scroll all the way down, there's now this thing here. Okay, this allows you to do what to create a local variable for each sprite. So, for example, the health. Okay, now I made a quick demo of this, so let me load it up and I put a link on Canvas. Let me just load it. Oops, dang it. Okay, so here's what I did. I created at the beginning 2 sprites of kind, enemy, whatever, doesn't matter. Right? I made a hamburger and I made an apple. Okay? And then what I did was I said, okay, when an object of kind enemy is created, do the following stuff. set the health to 5, and then randomize the x coordinate, just to put it somewhere so that they're not right on top of each other. Okay, so when these two things get created, because they are of kind enemy, this little script runs, and it initially sets both of their enemy health, or whatever variable you want to call it, it sets it to 5. Okay, and I just picked that number sort of out of thin air. Okay, then, to demonstrate that these are in fact two different numbers, even though they're both called enemy health, I put this in. Every second, my sprite, which is the hamburger, his health changes by -1. And then I have each one basically display that value. Okay? And to the screen. Okay, so what do we see then? They both start off with health 5. Okay, but what happens to the hamburger's health? It's going down by 1 every second, just because I had this run every second, just for demonstration's sake. But unlike the life variable, what happens when the hamburger's health hits 0? It just keeps going, right? I never told the program what to do. Like, it doesn't know what enemy health is. I could have called that, made that variable and called it supercalifragilisticexpialidocious for all I could, right? The name is irrelevant. So what would I want to happen if something hit health 0 probably? I'd have it delete, right? Okay, so if an object has health 0, then delete it, okay? Now I didn't add that in here, and so it's just gonna keep running down forever, well, or until the data overflows. I'm not sure what number format they use. Well, we could. I don't want to. I don't know if it's using 8 or 32 or what bit length it is. So sorry about that. Eventually, if we waited around long enough, it's going to go from minus something back to positive something. And it's going to wrap around. So this happened on YouTube probably 8 or something years ago. What was the most played video on YouTube? You guys happen to know? It may be different now, but like, yeah, it's a Gangnam Style video, right? From the music video from, Psy, is a South Korean artist, right? You know, the whole life, right? Okay, so anyway, what happened was YouTube was using 32-bit signed integers to store the play counter. Well, you can only represent numbers from like -2 point something billion to +2 point something billion with a 32-bit integer. And if, like, they must have been thinking, oh, it'll never get billions of nothing will ever get billions of plays. Well, if there's anything to learn about the internet, it's challenge accepted, right? I mean, it's kind of like, well, I'll talk about this in a second. Yeah, so it overflowed, and suddenly the thing was showing a negative play count, and they broke YouTube. So they had to reprogram it with 64-bit, which means basically every person on the planet would have to each watch it several billion times before it would ever overflow again. Okay, so basically not happening. Anyway, what was I going to say? The overflow. Oh, the internet, right. You guys been following the whole GameStop stock thing, right?
I bought into Nokia and they took it off this morning, so pretty upset.
Oh.
They're pissed. They're like, stop disrupting the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so anyway, I've been kind of laughing at that and how people are complaining, like, this should be illegal. It's like, this is how stocks work, right? People buy them, people sell them, people short them, so yeah, whatever. Okay, so this demonstrates, though, that each sprite, my sprite 2, has its own version of the enemy health variable. Okay, and if I created like a bunch of these in my game, I could, therefore have different things have different health. Okay. So one of the questions that came up last time would be, well, let's say that you get to the boss level. Okay, what should happen when you get to the boss?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other enemies stop.
Right, we should not be creating other enemies. And maybe there could be also like a power-up, like a bomb that like destroys all the enemies that are on the screen. Okay. So the question was, how could I destroy all the enemies that are on the screen when in the game? So let me go back to TRAM's code. Okay, so what are the different enemies called? So where does it create them? Here. Set my enemy to be projectile of this art type, whatever. Right? Well, now there's multiple things that are of this the enemies, right? So how do I destroy all of them? Well, one thing you could do, so let me go back to my thing here, is I'm just going to make it when I press the A button, it'll delete all of them, just for sake of demonstration. Okay. How many different enemies are there on the screen? There happen to be just 2. So I could just say destroy my sprite 2. Right? That would work. But what if there are 100 enemies on the screen? I don't know. Do I want to have to say individually to just delete all of them? That'd be kind of annoying, right? Okay, so here's what I could do instead. If I go to loops, or let's see, where is it? Sprites. Here it is. Okay. This guy right here. Arrays of sprites of kind, and then you can pick whatever kinds that you've programmed in. I'll take enemy. Okay. So what this object is, and it's grayed out because I haven't put it in yet, would be basically when you call that, it makes a list of every enemy. Anything that's of the class enemy makes a list of all those things. Okay? And if I want to delete all of them, what I could do is I could go in here to a loop and say 4 element value of list. Well, which list? That list. And then this value thing is kind of like the sprite and other sprite for the collision thing, right? It's sort of a placeholder, right? So what I could do is I could say then destroy value. Okay, so what is this going to do? It's going to generate a list of all enemies, and then one by one go through the list and delete all of them. Okay? Now, that's going to happen essentially instantaneously because, yeah, although actually I could demonstrate that it's not instant. Well, I could, but let me do, where is the, I want to put in a pause basically. Is it under loops? Yeah, here it is. Okay. So let me put a 5-second pause in there just to, and this is sort of a ridiculous amount, but it demonstrates what I want. Okay, so if I run the game, all right, counter goes down. If I hit the A key, this was running, right? And it was going to loop through, in this case, 2 items of type enemy. And I put the 5-second wait in there just to be, to deliberately show us that it's doing it one at a time. But if I don't have the delay in there, it would happen, they would be deleted sequentially, but it would just happen so quickly that you almost would think that they were happening at the same time. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, good. All right, so what I want you guys to do today, and then we'll quit the stream at one point, is we've talked about a lot of different things you could add. Pick something to work on, okay? And we're gonna sit around and just work on stuff today. And so pick a thing to work on to add and see, like, okay, how are you gonna implement it? How are you gonna to make it work? And then we'll come back kind of in the last couple minutes at the end and kind of talk about what kind of stuff you guys, A, were doing, and B, problems or solutions. Okay, is that gonna make sense? All right, now, before I want to make sure I don't forget this. When you guys were in the little tutorial menu, there were 3 things. So there was the stupid, like, get started with MakeCode one. Then there was the spaceship one with the 4 whatever different stages. What was under that? Yeah, the platformer one. Okay, so for Tuesday, before you guys get to class, I want you to have done the platformer set of tutorials, and then in class on Tuesday, we're going to do the same thing like we did today. We'll start talking about things that we learned from the platformer tutorial, and then we'll say, okay, what could we add to this thing? How could we enhance it? Does that kind of make sense? Okay, so the same idea, just with the platformer instead of this. All right, so I'm going to quit the stream, and let's start making stuff.